You are not here by accident. We are standing at the edge of possibilities between what is, what could, and what will be. Where time, space, and humanity cross paths. Where the future has stopped being theory as old assumptions fade away and new realities are becoming real. Are you ready to step beyond the familiar? Look no further and enter the third horizon.
Before we begin, let us step back for a moment. In the last several episodes, we explored ideals civilizations depend on, but often forget: memory, time, and cohesion. We asked not what causes civilizations to fail, but what allows them to endure. Because history shows something remarkable. Civilizations bend, they strain, they face crisis, and yet many do not collapse. Something holds. Before we go further, I want to return to a moment from an earlier conversation. In episode 8, I was joined by Lempic Opic. And during that discussion, he introduced a framework I had not yet explored in this series: Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Human needs follow a structure: survival, safety, belonging. And Lempick's point was clear. When societies are placed under real pressure, those higher level differences begin to fall away. People align around survival. And in that sense, he was right. We can see it in history. As was mentioned in episode 8, a good example happened during the Second World War. London burned, and yet society did not collapse. Differences did not disappear, but they were outranked. Survival became the priority. But cohesion does not always hold. We have seen what happens when cohesion succeeds, but we have also seen what happens when it fails. In a previous episode, we examined Hurricane Katrina, a system under pressure. But this time, look at it through a different lens. Not infrastructure, not logistics, but trust. Communication broke down. Coordination broke down. Confidence in institutions collapsed. People did not know who to rely on. Agencies did not align. Decisions slowed. At the exact moment when speed was required, and once trust eroded, the system did not just struggle, it fragmented. This is the difference, not between strength and weakness, but between cohesion and fragmentation. And in the absence of cohesion, systems fail, disasters emerge, cooperation falters, communication breaks down, and eventually everything can come to a halt. This can lead to arguments, wars, isolation, and even death. So, cohesion built out of trust is essential to survival. But cohesion can go deeper than survival. As Levitt described from his own experience with the North Ireland peace process, people who once stood in opposition found a way forward, not by erasing differences, but by identifying what they shared. Cohesion. But cohesion is not sameness. It is alignment. But as I reflected on that conversation, something stood out. Maslow explains what people need, but not fully. What holds the structure together? It describes pressure, but not the deeper architecture beneath it. It is a two-dimensional view. And what we are facing today requires something more, a third dimension. Maslow gives us a hierarchy of needs, but needs alone do not create stability, because needs explain behavior, not structure. Two societies can have the same needs and produce completely different outcomes. One stabilizes, the other fractures. The difference is not the need. It is cohesion. It is trust. Needs create pressure. Trust determines response. Because systems do not hold together by intention alone. Also, as mentioned in episode 8, in 1967, Apollo 1 failed. 3 astronauts lost their lives. But what followed was not collapse. It was transparency, investigation, redesign, trust. Trust was rebuilt through truth. Sometimes truth itself must fight to be seen. In 1854, London faced a deadly cholera outbreak. Most believed it spread through air. But one physician, John Snow, mapped the cases and found the source: a single water pump. Science revealed the truth, but it required people to trust the evidence before consensus existed. And now, a word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is brought to you by Coin Toss Coffee, a brand built on passion, family, and the bold leap into possibility. Every blend is handcrafted from Kevin's own recipes, including their best-selling Cowboy Roast, bold, smooth, and unforgettable. And right now, listeners of The Third Horizon can enjoy 10% off their order at cointosscoffee.com using promo code Horizon10. That is cointosscoffee.com. Coin Toss Coffee. Take a chance on a better cup.
Let me ask you that question again that I've asked quite a few times on many episodes. If humanity builds a settlement on the moon, what will matter more? Technology or trust? In that same conversation from episode 8, Lambick's answer was clear. Technology must come first. Because in an unforgiving environment, if the system fails, everyone dies. And again, he was not wrong. But here is the deeper question. Does technology ever truly stand alone? Because it is designed by people, built by people, maintained by people, trusted through people. By the time you step into that system, you are not trusting the machine. You are trusting an entire chain of human decisions. So let us return to that question. If humanity builds a settlement on the moon, what matters more? Technology or trust? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Technology. Because without it, nothing works. Life support fails. People die. Systems fail. Missions end. So yes, technology enables survival. But look deeper. Technology does not exist in isolation. It is designed, again, by people, built by people, maintained by people. So, what are you really trusting? The machine or the chain of decisions behind it? Every bolt, every system, every line of code represents human judgment. And if that chain breaks, even perfect technology can fail or does fail once the chain breaks. In space, there is no margin, no fallback, no delay. Astronauts must trust their training, their team, and their systems. And that trust is what allows them to act. Because in that environment, hesitation is risk. Doubt is risk. So, yes, technology enables survival, but trust makes that technology usable. But let us go deeper. Trust is the foundation, but cohesion is the result. Humans need trust to survive and thrive. Trust holds strong under pressure. Trust drives innovation, performance, and resilience. Wisdom keepers refer to trust as a system, calculation, and responsibility. And trust proves worthiness. Civilizations that survive have two fundamental functions they must maintain. The first is the balance of survival, which has two parts: stability and adaptation. Stability preserves what works and maintains order. Adaptation embraces change and creates the future. The second function is continuous transformation, which incorporates a sense that detects the need for change, and decision making that evaluates and chooses solutions. Then adaptation that is constantly adjusting and improving, with methods of development that ensure implementation and action. And finally, learning systems that strive to capture ideals and improve the human condition. Here on the third horizon, we call that responsive system. Charles Darwin once said, "It is not the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." Modern research supports this. Studies in disaster sociology show that in real crisis, people do not descend into chaos. They cooperate because survival aligns behavior. Modern systems have learned something critical. Trust must be engineered. In aviation, failures are not hidden, they are studied. Every incident is investigated, every mistake is documented, every system is improved. This is why aviation works, not because failure is impossible, but because learning is constant. Trust is not assumed, it is built through repetition, through verification, and through accountability. And over time, that process creates confidence. Not blind confidence, but informed trust. But something is changing. As systems grow more complex, understanding decreases. Political scientist Daniel Sherwitz has noted that as knowledge expands, the gap between experts and the public widens. And as that gap grows, trust becomes essential. So, what does this reveal? It reveals a deeper structure: survival, safety, belonging. But beneath all of them, trust. Not as a feeling, but as a function. The condition that allows systems to operate. When this functional trust is working properly, you have what the third horizon calls the cohesion hierarchy. This cohesion hierarchy has 5 levels. Level 1 is the foundation: integrity, which is systems built on truth. Level 2 is competence, trust in abilities. Level 3 is reliability, which is trust in each other. Level 4 is communication, which is again trust in understanding. And finally, level 5, shared purpose, which is trust in alignment. This cohesion hierarchy is built from the ground up. When the lower levels are strong, the higher levels thrive and stay fully functional. However, when they break, systems fail. Trust disappears. Confidence collapses. Systems fragment. Misunderstandings thrive. And division triumphs. This is why human trust is so important. When it is strong, we have stronger foundations, stronger systems, and greater possibilities. When it is not, we have collapse, chaos, and division. Human systems do not survive by accident. They depend on human trust. Trust does not exist only between people. It exists between people and systems. When you board an airplane, you are making a decision built on trust. You are trusting engineers you will never meet, pilots you do not know, maintenance crews you will never see. You are trusting systems layered over decades, tested, verified, refined. And because that trust exists, you sit down without hesitation. Now remove the trust. Even if the system is technically sound, people hesitate. They question. They resist. And the system slows, not because it failed, but because trust did. The same is true in a hospital. Patients trust processes they do not control, procedures they do not fully understand. Doctors trust systems. Teams trust each other. And when that trust is present, decisions happen quickly. Care flows. Systems function. But when trust is absent, everything changes. Delays appear. Doubt spreads. Outcomes suffer. Trust is not a layer on top of a system. It is what allows the system to operate at all. And now, another word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is also brought to you by FCA, Fine Consulting Agency. If you need high-level policy analysis, structured research, or strategic writing tailored for government, space governance, or nonprofit sectors, FCA delivers clarity, organization, and deep insight. Learn more at fcaonline.info, that is fcaonline.info.
And nowhere will this matter more than in space. Closed systems, no margin for error, no gradual failure, only systems that work or systems that do not. And in that environment, trust is not secondary. It is structural. There is a tendency to think of trust as something emotional, something personal, something fragile. But modern philosophy suggests something different. Philosopher Catherine Hawley argues that trust is not simply a feeling, it is a function, a system of commitment and reliance, a way of managing risk in a world we cannot fully control. Political theorist Russell Hardin takes it further. He describes trust not as sentiment, but as calculation, a recognition that others have reasons to act in ways we depend on. And philosopher Honora O'Neill makes the final connection. Trust is not just personal, it is institutional, a structural component of functioning societies. Without it, systems do not merely weaken, they fail. Cohesion is often misunderstood as agreement, as unity, as sameness. But cohesion is not sameness, it is alignment. Different roles, different perspectives, different functions, operating within a shared structure. That is what allows systems to endure pressure without losing integrity. So, what does this mean? It means that cohesion is not accidental, it is built, maintained, reinforced across people, institutions, and time. Maslow showed us what we need. History showed us what we do under pressure. But what we see now is what makes it all possible. Trust is not the result of stability. It is the reason stability can exist at all. And civilizations who do not have this level of trust will drift and eventually fail. Civilizations do not fail because they face pressure. They fail because they lose the trust that holds them together. But this raises another question. If trust is what holds systems together, if cohesion is what allows them to function, then what happens when that system moves beyond itself? Because no system exists in isolation. At some point, every system must interact with others, with institutions, with environments, with structures that were not built for it. And in that moment, a new challenge emerges. Not just survival, but recognition. Because trust may hold a system together internally, but it does not guarantee acceptance externally. So the question becomes, how does a system become recognized within a larger system that resists change? In our next episode, we explore that path. How systems do not just function, but enter. How legitimacy forms. And why recognition is never claimed, but earned. This podcast is not about blame. This podcast is not about taking sides. This podcast is about discovery, about exploring the deeper meaning behind the human experience and the systems that shape it. If you are someone who senses the world shifting, if you feel the tension between what is and what could be, if you believe humanity is meant for something more, then welcome. This is the Third Horizon. Thank you for joining me today for today's episode. More conversations are coming, deeper, wider, and firmly focused on the future. If you like today's podcast, hit the like button, let us know in the comments, and subscribe to our Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook channels, or whatever platform you are watching from. Do not forget to share this podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and beyond.